Hello, Dog Nation. Welcome into a very special Week 2 edition of Go With The Flow, presented by our friends at R.S. Andrews. Dog Nation's choice for all of our air, heating, plumbing, and electrical needs. And our buddy Dari Payro from R.S. Andrews joins us here once again for Week 2. Now, Dari, there's a good news, bad news scenario. The good news is the feedback we got from our first show was outstanding. People seem to really have a good time with what we're doing. The bad news is, at least through 1 week, I don't know that Connor or I, either one, feel all that great about our picks. How did you feel about what you did for Week 1?
I would have felt better if Notre Dame covered. That would have been me in a pretty good spot. But I think I did pretty good. The few I missed were pretty close.
Yeah, so we'll certainly have a good time going through all of this week's games as well. We'll do a lot on Georgia-Murray State, as you might imagine, or at least we'll do what we can, given the fact that it's the FBS versus FCS matchup. Sometimes the spread data not quite as readily easily be found, but we got some fun numbers to go with on that. And then we'll talk about all the big games of the week, including coming up, I think, 2 really interesting games, Clemson and Texas A&M, and LSU traveling to Austin to face Texas. Those are 2 massive, massive games on the slate for this week. We will give you our thoughts on those, and you won't just hear from myself and our Dog Nation producer Connor Riley and our buddy Dari Payro from R.S. Andrews. You'll also hear from Dog Nation experts Mike Griffith and Jeff Sintel. The Dog Nation Daily audience had a chance to weigh in on some of these picks. So we have got a lot of folks weighing in on their thoughts on the upcoming games of the weekend, and I can't wait to share all that with you. And as I said before, it's all brought to you by our friends at R.S. Andrews. Make sure you go to rsandrews.com to find out a lot more about them, especially this time of year. You know, on Saturday in Athens, temperatures expected to be in the 90s. Well, it's going to be that hot around your house, too. You want to make sure that house stays cooled down during this hot, early fall portion of the year. The way to do that is get that $99 Smiley tune-up from my friends at R.S. Andrews. Story after story, they've been delivering smiles for a long time. They can deliver a smile for you as well, but you've got to find them online, rsandrews.com, for more information on that. All right, let us start in Athens for Saturday. Georgia, listed as a 49-point favorite over the Racers of Murray State. We asked Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers about this. We asked Jeff Sintel, and we also asked our buddy Mike Griffith, who lives in Athens and covers the Dogs for DogNation.com, to weigh in on whether the Georgia Bulldogs will cover the big number. Here is what Mike said about that.
Georgia, Murray State, it's a pay game. It's an FCS opponent. Georgia must work on their passing game, and they will. Georgia 70, Murray State 3.
So Mike Griffith there takes the Georgia Bulldogs to cover. Huge number on Saturday against Murray State. Does Jeff Sintel agree? Let's find out here.
I'm going to take the Racers on that. I don't think they will cover by 49.
So obviously Jeff not picking Murray State to win the game, but he is picking the Racers to keep it a little bit closer at least than our friends at MyBookie think it's going to turn out to be. How about Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers? When they weighed in, what side of this were they on? 89%, so even with a big number now, this is probably not a huge surprise. 89% weigh in to say they like the Dogs to cover the 49%. So big number, but a Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers feeling confident right now. With that, I'll bring in our buddy Connor Riley. So it's a 2-1 margin thus far. Mike and the listeners and viewers on the side of the Dogs. Jeff a little skeptical about the big number. What do you come down on this one, Connor?
So, a lot of times when guys are running races and sort of track meets, their earlier times and sort of, the build-up to the finals are a little bit slower than they usually are. I think this being an early in the year game for Georgia, they're not going to try and run as fast as they can, a.k.a. score as many points as they can. Because of that, I like Murray State plus 49.
Okay, so that's going to put us at 2-2 in terms of what happens for Georgia on Saturday. And, Dari, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to go in a different direction than Connor on this. And for me, this comes down to backups. Dari, I saw the Georgia, in some cases second, and in many cases third-string guys hold Vanderbilt without a touchdown late in the game on Saturday. That helps you if you're looking to cover a big number. I think if Stetson Bennett comes in for Georgia, I think that, he's got a little moxie to him. I'm not telling you he's, the same kind of quarterback Jake Fromm is. He's not, but I think that Georgia wants to play him. I think when he comes in, he's going to want to bring a little energy to the proceedings. So given the energy that I think the Georgia reserves and offense potentially provide in a game once it's well in hand, and what the Georgia defense might be able to do prohibiting and preventing scores from Murray State, I actually think that Georgia just barely creeps in ahead of this big number, minus the 49. I think I'm taking Georgia here, which puts it 3-2 in favor of the Dogs, minus the big points. With that in mind, Dari, do you want to go with the flow on this?
I can't remember the last time Georgia has ever had a spread this big to cover, or if they ever have covered one this big. I don't know. I just think it's a big number. I'm actually not going with the flow. I'm going to take Murray State and the points. I think they're going to tune up a lot of the second and third string guys. I think they're still going to do really well, but I think 49 is just too big of a number.
So we're off and running here, and for those of you who are tuning in this week for the first time, that's how it goes. We give you our thoughts. Dari decides, does he want to go with the flow and be a part of the consensus? And right there, he weighs in with some pretty good analysis for why Georgia, even getting a comfortable win, might not be motivated to go all the way for a half a hundred's worth of a margin of victory. Let's move on to our next game. And one of the themes, I believe, Dari, for this week is going to be, I think, teams looking for retribution. Teams that were ugly in week one, maybe looking a little better in week two. Let me go to Columbia, Missouri here for a moment, where West Virginia comes into play Missouri after Missouri lost at Laramie, Wyoming to the Cowboys a week ago. Missouri still looking like a pretty big favorite here, 14.5 points for Barry Odom's team after not being very good against Wyoming a week ago. What do the experts say on this? Let me start with Dog Nation's Mike Griffith. Here's what he had to say.
Missouri, West Virginia, the Missouri Tigers with a disappointing loss on the road at Wyoming. I think they get a good win at home against West Virginia. I got that 30-17.
So Mike going the side of the underdog here, going West Virginia, apparently turned off by what he saw last week for the Tigers there in Laramie. Here's Jeff Sintel on that topic.
I'm going to take West Virginia and that 14.5 points.
Boy, so far, clean sweep from the Scribes. All going underdog here against Missouri, not liking what they saw. What do the Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers think about this? Whose side are they on here? Okay, close, a little close here, but thus far, kind of a sweep. 57% take West Virginia, the dog, plus the points there at Missouri. Connor, this is too much West Virginia love for me. Kind of set me straight here on this.
You know who almost graduated from the University of Missouri with a degree in journalism, might I add?
Who's that?
That'd be one Brad Pitt, one of my favorite actors. Because of that, I'm a big Brad Pitt fan. Go see him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood if you haven't. Give me Missouri in the 14 points. I think they're going to correct a lot of the issues they had last week. Chief among them, they went to Laramie, Wyoming to play a football game, and you should just never do that.
Yeah, no one does that voluntarily. I'm going to side with Connor on this one, Dari. Let me give you a couple of reasons why. Now, this may not seem like sound logic, but you can determine that for yourself. One of the things that I don't think always works particularly well together are big underdogs and overs. I think overs typically favor favorites. I think unders typically favor underdogs. West Virginia plays a lot of overs. They've gone over the total in 5 of their last 7 games overall, and they've gone over the total in 4 of their last 5 on the road. Now, Dari, I don't have to tell you why that's the case. West Virginia's just terrible on defense. And it's that suspect defensive play with Kelly Bryant in front of his home crowd, or at least the couple thousand that decided to show up. They've struggled with attendance in recent years. I actually think Missouri bounced back in a big way. The same team typically does not show up 2 weeks in a row in college football anyway. This will be the better version of Missouri. I know it's a big number. In this case, though, I believe my bookie's telling you what you need to know, which is despite the fact they lost last week, Missouri is still overwhelmingly the better team. I'm sticking with Connor on this one. I'm going the favorite at home, but the flow says West Virginia. Are you going with the flow?
I am not.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Just so you know, West Virginia against James Madison, they only had 34 yards rushing on 24 carries. This West Virginia team is not good. Missouri, even though they struggled on the road at Wyoming, it was because they had a lot of turnovers. I don't expect that in this game. I think they'll cover. I wish it was less than 14, but I'm taking Missouri at home.
But don't you agree with me, though, that when a number like that seems way big and, Missouri after last week, that's going to be outsized to some people, this is typically a hint of just how much better one team may be than the other. You cited the game against the Dukes for James Madison last week for West Virginia. Maybe that's a good reason as well. And I guess there's also potential thought of an overreaction to a poor performance there. But I just think the online sports book here is trying to tell you something.
Yeah, I agree. I think 14.5 kind of says it, and I think that's where the money's going on right now.
So, Connor, let me also say this. I feel like this is 2 weeks in a row where a pretty important trend has emerged. I feel like the sharp action is taking place here inside the Dog Nation headquarters studios. I feel like the square action's coming from the more riderly portion of our contingent. Is that probably fair to say? And no disrespect to the Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers here as well?
No, of course not. I would just point out that, last week we were the quote-unquote sharp action, and I went 1-8 depending on where you choose to look for your lines.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Not the greatest week for us last week, but nonetheless, we move on. Let's talk about Vanderbilt and Purdue here for a moment. Vanderbilt, after obviously losing to Georgia last week, a game we covered in great measure, they now travel to West Lafayette, Indiana. A better than you think Purdue team, but a team that also got absolutely walloped by an SEC team in its last matchup versus one, Auburn in the bowl game from a year ago. Boilermakers are an 8-point favorite at home, though. What do the folks think? Let me start with our buddy Mike Griffin.
Vanderbilt is a big underdog at Purdue, and maybe because Georgia beat them up physically, or maybe because Purdue showed so well before losing in the last seconds against Nevada. But I think Vanderbilt goes up to West Lafayette, Indiana, and beats the Boilermakers 27-24.
So Mike on the side of Vanderbilt right there. Let's find out Jeff Sintel. Is he much the same way? They've been in lockstep thus far. Let's find out more.
I like Vanderbilt to go into Purdue and steamroll the Boilermakers, and I'll happily take those points.
So he's taking the points there as well. So thus far we got a 2-0 sweep on the side of Vanderbilt. Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, are they also going SEC here? Now, you're going to see a theme a lot. There's a lot of pro SEC picks made on these shows from time to time. 61% here, also siding with Vanderbilt, getting 8 points there in West Lafayette. So thus far it's 3-0 on the side of the SEC team. Connor, where you coming down on this one?
You smell that?
I do smell that.
Something smells fishy. Vanderbilt looked okay against a very talented Georgia team a week ago. Purdue loses on the road in Reno, Nevada to Nevada on a last-second field goal. And Purdue is an 8-point favorite here. That doesn't add up to me. I think Vegas is trying to tell you something here.
Yeah.
Give me Purdue.
All right, so let me give you a couple numbers, Dari, that may go against Connor there, although he's right. If I'm going to say for the other game that, hey, this when the point spread seems fishy, you might want to pay attention to it. Arguably this would be the same way. Vandy, though, is 7-2 in its last 7 games against the spread. Obviously, Georgia, an example last week of them not covering. But how about this, though, Dari? 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 road games. So under Derek Mason, this is a team that's been a live dog and putting up a fight in these road games. I actually take Vanderbilt on the field to win this one straight up. I definitely like them plus the points here. I'm going to go Vanderbilt, and I'm going to put my side squarely on, and maybe no pun intended, on the side of the flow here. By a 4-1 margin, we favor Vanderbilt over Purdue. Are you going to go with the flow?
Wow. I like that. It's taking a money line, Vandy straight up. No, I'm not going to go with the flow. I mean, the points with Vandy are tempting. I want Vandy to win, but I just think Purdue is better on both sides of the ball, particularly on the offense, which they moved the ball really well last week. The only problem in that game is they were -5 in the turnover department.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens at their home opener. I think they're going to be focused, and I think they're going to cover the 8 points.
And that makes a lot of sense in the world why you underperform one week. An outsized turnover margin, as Dari said, that's not likely to maintain itself week after week. What's that Purdue running back's name that's so good?
Rondale Moore. He plays a little wide receiver as well.
Yeah. He's a load to deal with. But you know what? I think Vanderbilt defensively may have a little something for him. Nonetheless, let's get to some of the games that really matter here. 3 fun ones in a row coming up. Let me start with Texas A&M at Clemson. SEC on the road, defending national champions. What does our buddy Mike Griffith say about this? I know he's always kind of criticizing Clemson on Twitter. Does this continue with his pick here? Let's take a look at Mike.
Clemson, Texas A&M, big game. Tigers 17.5-point favorite. Most difficult game of the year, I think, during the regular season for the Tigers. I think Trevor Lawrence and Clemson wins this game by 2 touchdowns, 34-20.
So Mike on the side of A&M there with that one. Jeff Sintel, what do you think?
Wow, second game's a huge improvement for most programs. Clemson's going to have to prove a lot for me to cover the 18.5. I don't think they do it. I think that's a 17-point game.
So he thinks it's a little closer. He took A&M plus the points there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit difficult to decipher that. So far we got 2 on the side of A&M, hopefully keeping this one a little closer, which would certainly be good for the TV audience. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, not a surprise here. A relatively even split, but 54% also take Texas A&M. So the very pro SEC crowd here not siding with the ACC favorite at the moment. Connor, you want to talk some sense into this?
Clemson didn't look all that great a week ago. They still won by 38 points, and as great teams do, they cover. There are a lot of questions about this A&M team. Clemson's offensive line is pretty good from a season ago, whereas I have a lot of questions about what we're going to see at A&M's defensive line. Travis Etienne looked great in week 1.
Yeah.
I don't know how well Trevor Lawrence plays, but I think Clemson rides the running game and wins and covers at home this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go Clemson on this one as well, Dari. Now, the number backs A&M a bit, 4-1 against the spread in their last 5. So Jimbo's done a pretty good job of keeping this one close late in the year, a year ago, or exceeding expectations in the games they would have been favored. So they've been pretty good against the number. But here's my issue, and this kind of gets away from any kind of numerical analysis. It's just, I think, just a practical reality. When you play an easy schedule, Clemson does, I think it gives you a chance to really circle the 1 or 2 games that you want to really matter to you. And you can put a highlighter in the name of Texas A&M, and you can show up and be ready for this. Dabo knows Jimbo well. They've coached against each other a million times before. Certainly Clemson's played the SEC, war of words here throughout the summer. That's extra motivation, too. It helps to have the better overall team, and it helps be playing at home. It's a huge number, but I think this is the kind of game that Clemson wants to really show up for, knowing that it can coast for the next few weeks if it wants to. So it's against my nature to lay this many points. I think Clemson is the right side here. I'm going to take the Tigers, but the flow says Texas A&M. Are you going to go with the flow?
Well, Clemson has won its last 11 games by 20 points or more. However, this defense is without the 8 starters from last year's team. I think Texas A&M can hang in this game a bit. It's going to be through the air. So I'm going to go with the flow, take the points in Texas A&M.
First of all, I commend you for the research. 11 straight by 20 or more. That's a pretty good number to know, given where the spread is on this one. And, Connor, I think you would join me in saying if Dari and Jeff and Mike and the Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers end up being right about this and this game is closer than the experts think, even though we're busy working on Saturday covering the Georgia-Murray State game, that's just a better TV product for us. I want to be wrong on this. Mm-hmm. Somehow I suspect I won't.
Yeah, I just think Clemson's too good. Dabo and Jimbo know each other really well, and back in 2013, Jimbo went up there with a Florida State team that ended up winning the national title and just beat the brakes off of Dabo. I think Dabo's out for a little revenge this week and might try and embarrass Jimbo with Clemson and A&M.
All right, Dari, I want to warn you about one thing before we move on. The next 3 plays, starting with BYU, Tennessee in a moment, and then finishing with LSU and Texas, and then Arkansas and Ole Miss, I really like my picks a lot for these games. You ever have one of those moments where you really feel pretty good about these? The first few, I'm somewhat grasping at straws. I really like my pick in these next 3 games, though. So do with that what you will. Tennessee hosting BYU. You don't have to have me tell you what happened here last week. Georgia State went into Neyland Stadium, won the game 38-30. Worst loss, I think it's inarguable. Worst loss in Vols program history. But what's the bounce back look here as a 3-point favorite against BYU, who played well at least for a while against Utah on a Thursday to start the season? Let's go Mike Griffith here. Mike, what do you think about the Vols and the Cougars?
BYU, Tennessee, I've kind of gone back and forth with this game. I can't even read my own writing. I've changed the scores so many times. I think BYU is going to win. I think they're going to go into Knoxville and pull this off in absolute backbreaking fashion. 24-23, BYU escapes Knoxville with the victory.
So he says BYU keeps a little closer there. Interesting to note. How about Jeff Sintel? BYU or Tennessee? What say you?
Ooh, the toughest game for everybody to predict. They're going to go, is it good if Tennessee loses? Do they cover? What about Utah coming in there? I think Jeremy Pruitt and Tennessee have their Alamo moment in Neyland Stadium, and I think they win this game going outright.
Split decision from the Scribes. Jeff on the side of Tennessee, Mike on the side of BYU. Dog Nation Daily, listeners and viewers, what you say about all of this? Okay, so Dog Nation Daily fans turned off by Tennessee a week ago. Probably not a huge surprise. It's almost three-quarters, 74%, taking BYU against Tennessee. That's probably not a huge surprise. So that puts us at 2-1, underdog on the road against Tennessee, who desperately needs a win. Connor, what you got?
So my heart is telling me one thing. I want to see Tennessee lose this game. I think it'd just be hilarious if Jeremy Pruitt and the Vols start 0-2 this year. But my head is telling me, like you often say, it's hard for your team to play poorly 2 weeks in a row. And, I'm wrong a lot. And I'm going to pick Tennessee here. And if I'm right, great. I got the pick right. And if I'm wrong, that means my heart is right and Tennessee loses.
It would certainly be the more entertaining outcome to see Tennessee lose again. The numbers do say BYU here. They're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 overall. They're 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 road games. That obviously goes back to the previous season, but it's still potentially a relevant number. However, Dari, you do not have to be the worst team in the country to play and have the worst performance in any given week. Did Tennessee have the worst performance in the country last week? They might have, but I believe there's an incredible regression back towards the mean here this week. I think the number actually makes this pretty easy. 3 is obviously a pretty key number, but I think it's actually easy for Tennessee to get out ahead of that. I don't want Tennessee to win, I'll admit that, but I think this is a strong, strong play. Tennessee is not bad enough to look this bad 2 weeks in a row. I think they get the desperation win against BYU. I think they cover the number to do that. I got the Vols. However, though, that only puts it at 3-2. The flow says BYU. Are you going with the flow?
It's really ugly in Knoxville right now. SEC team losing home opener as a 3-touchdown favorite to a team from the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
And a Sun Belt team that was 2-10 last year. If they lose to BYU this week, Pruitt's instantly going to be on the hot seat. The numbers and the stats and stuff, like you said, lean towards BYU winning this game. I don't have a lot of confidence in either of these teams, but I think because of how they lost, Pruitt's going to have their defense fired up, angry, and they're going to be prepared to shut down BYU. So I'll take Tennessee at home.
Yeah, I think you're right on this, Dari. To me, this is a little bit like, you ever backed a raccoon into a corner or something like that? The thing comes out fighting. I don't know that Tennessee's got a lot of fight in them for 12 games. They're just probably not that good of a team. But as you said before, with everything that Pruitt personally has at stake, I think he fights like a trapped animal here this weekend. I really do.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so that's really good. I'm glad to see us on the same side of that because while I don't cheer for Tennessee, I do like them minus the points. Also, a lot of weird line movement on this. I said this week during Dog Nation Daily. Unless I saw a typo, this thing opened with BYU as a favorite and quickly ran the direction of Tennessee. And oftentimes some people will tell you that you want to move in the direction of that team. But let's move on to what I think is ultimately destined to be the game of the week, a game I have a strong feeling about, but a game that's going to be really, really entertaining. It's LSU at Texas. Could not get any bigger sounding than these two games, or I should say these two teams playing against each other. Let me start once again with Mike Griffith. Mike, your thoughts on the Longhorns and the Tigers?
Then, of course, the LSU-Texas game. And I know LSU's favored by 4.5, I think, in Austin. And, it's not the same Texas that beat Georgia. They lost a lot of guys. There were a lot of seniors on that group that were pretty motivated. I got LSU beating Texas 31-18 in Austin.
So he takes the LSU side of this. How about Jeff Sintel on Texas and LSU? Let's give him a chance to weigh in.
I think I'm stocking high right now in LSU. I think LSU will win and cover that.
Y'all notice how Jeff kind of thought about that one for a minute? He kind of turned his head and looked up to the sky. So both of our scribes on the side of LSU here for a moment. Something tells me the Dog Nation Daily audience is going to go pro SEC here. Maybe a little bad blood left over from the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, 69%. I think I'm supposed to say nice about that. 69% do take LSU on the side of the SEC. That's not probably all that much of a surprise. Thus far, it's SEC all the way around. Connor, what do you want to do on this one?
So, like Jeff, I've put a lot of thought into this, and usually Dari's the one that comes with the research, but I got a couple numbers.
All
There
right.
are two big numbers here. Tom Herman, I believe, in his last 16 games as an underdog, 13-2-1, 10 outright wins, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, not always great as a favorite, weirdly, but strong as an underdog.
However, there's a bigger number at play here that I would like to remind the folks out there who might be considering putting a wager on this game. 2. That is how many scholarship running backs Texas has for this game.
That's
I think
not
if you're
good.
going to want to beat this LSU team, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. Sam Ehlinger can do that. I really, really, really want to go Texas here because I think everyone is blowing smoke up LSU's butt this week. But I'm taking the Tigers because I just can't get past that running back fact.
Let me tell you what matters to me on this one, Dari. First of all, while I'm right there with anybody wanting to make fun of Orgeron, the truth is, by every metric we have to go by, he's actually been a pretty good coach. LSU is 13-7 in their last 20 games against the spread. They're 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 road games. Haven't played well against Alabama, we all know that, but played better than expectations versus everybody else. Let me also, and Dari, I'm sure you're probably aware of this because I know you follow this stuff closely, but let me also bring the audience's attention to something else. For everything that gets said from time to time about how the AP poll and the polls can be somewhat made up and not all that instructive, there's one area, though, in which, or a few areas in which the AP poll can really tell you what you want to know. When you see one team higher rated than another, and that team is favored in the game, that team has a pretty good batting average for covering. Now, what I take that to mean is the media, the country, the fans, they know both teams well, and there's a general consensus that one team is better than the other. That means something. It probably means even more to me in this case because Texas is an even bigger well-known brand, and they happen to be playing at home. If the bookies and the bookmakers are going to still make LSU a favorite in the other guy's stadium, that is all I need to know. I think one of the strongest plays of the entire week is LSU at Texas. I'm going to make this a clean sweep, and I don't know that we've had a 5-0 sweep the entire time we've been doing this show, but I'm going to make it a clean sweep, 5-0 on the side of LSU. This is a true go with the flow moment. Dari, are you going to take LSU here as well?
This is by far the best game of the week. I think the game's going to be back and forth. I think it's going to come down to who can stay on the field the longest, controlling the clock, and moving the chains on third downs. I think Texas is going to be successful slowing down the running game for LSU and forcing them into third and longs. This is going to go all the way down to the wire. Nothing short of an instant classic. LSU is going to win this game close, but Texas covers.
I got a lot of respect for that. Even though I think it's the wrong side on this game, I think it takes some real guts to listen to 5 straight picks for LSU over Texas and go the other direction with that. That makes me want to watch this game even more now. This is going to be a really, really good football game. I cannot wait.
It is, and Ellinger's stats at home are night and day. He plays so much better at home. His efficiency and accuracy and running is really good at home. I think altogether it's going to be a really good game.
Okay, so let me ask you. All right, let me ask you about that though, because Joe Burrow finished the season last year pretty strong for LSU. Played well in the bowl game. Played well against Texas A&M. Accounted for 5 touchdowns last week, and they're not really playing anybody, Georgia Southern, but still it's 5 touchdowns. Part of my belief in this game is I think Burrow outplays Ehlinger. Are you sure that Ehlinger is going to outplay Burrow in this game?
Well, I mean, it depends on the stats and efficiency. Burrow could put up bigger numbers in yards, but he also failed to throw for more than 200 yards in 2 of LSU's 3 losses last year. So when he faces a team that's a pretty good defense, he has struggled. So I don't know. It's really different. There are 2 different types of quarterbacks.
Hey, we got plenty more to come, including more thoughts on Georgia-Murray State here in just a little bit. Before that, let me remind you kind of who we are, what we're doing. My name is Brandon Adams. Happy to have Dari Payro with us. Of course, Connor Raleigh here in our Dog Nation World Headquarters studios as well. Hearing from Jeff Sintel, Mike Griffith, as we go with the flow and take a look at the top picks from around the world of college football. Give a chance to weigh in on our thoughts. It's just part of the fun stuff that we do here around Dog Nation. Of course, our friends at RS Andrews, Dari included, they love college football, and they love to be part of these conversations. It's why we partner with them on this kind of stuff. Let me tell you something else. When you bring them into your home to do some work on your your heating unit, your air conditioning unit, plumbing, electrical, any kind of issue you're having like that around your house, some of the stuff behind the walls that you can't really see too well, you're going to love that kind of thing as well. Because here's what I love about R.S. Andrews. They show up on time. They do the work that's promised. There's no kind of weird surprise, the way that maybe you've heard some horror stories from your neighbors or anything like that. No, R.S. Andrews does quality work at a price that's promised, and you're going to be really happy to have brought them their techs into your house. You're going to be very happy about that. So please check them out online at rsandrews.com to find out more about my friends, R.S. Andrews. And thanks for being here with us this week as a part of the R.S. Andrews Go With The Flow. And while I'm on the subject, if I can invite you to also check out our R.S. Andrews Cool Down each day as a part of Dog Nation Daily on the Dog Nation video channels. I would certainly appreciate you doing that as well. Now, before we get back to Georgia-Murray State, there is another game that I have kind of a weirdly strong opinion about. I have a strong play in the Arkansas-Ole Miss game. Before I weigh in on that, let somebody else talk for a change. Mike Griffith, take the floor.
Arkansas, I know they're an underdog. I know they've looked pretty awful, but for some reason, I'm going to take the Razorbacks to beat Ole Miss 29-28.
So he's actually going Arkansas straight up on the field there against Ole Miss. That's kind of a fun idea. Jeff Sintel, do you agree?
Arkansas, Ole Miss. This is the battle to figure out who's the worst team in the SEC West. Arkansas hasn't won in a couple of years, it seems like, in the conference. I like Rich Rod. I like Matt Castle to beat with the points.
So Jeff going favorite there at home for the Rebels. Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, the audience, break the tie here on this game. Once again, another close. We've had some real close deliberations here this week. The audience going home team here, Ole Miss, minus the 7 points. So we're 2-1 on the side of the Rebels over the Hogs here. Connor, I want to give you a chance to weigh in. Which side on this game are you?
If you're thinking of watching this game this weekend between these two terrible, terrible teams, just know you have friends and family out there that want to be with you, that want to hang out with you, that care about you, that care about your well-being. Don't put yourself through this game. All that being said, both of these teams are hot trash. Ole Miss doesn't deserve to be favored by 7 points over anybody, so just give me Arkansas and the 7 points, and if I don't see the second of this game, it'll be too much.
All right, Dari, before I make my pick and before I ask you to go with the flow, would you please educate our young friend here, Connor Riley, that the money that you make on betting this game pays just as well as the one on Texas and LSU, right? I mean, in your pocket, that money all sounds the same, it all jingles the same, and it all spins the same, right?
No doubt.
So with that in mind, I feel like there's an edge here in this game, and I'm actually in agreement on Connor on it. First of all, when in doubt, take the underdog anyway, but I think this game screams underdog. To start with, in the simplest of possible terms, it is Ole Miss, who is the worst team in the SEC, and I don't think it's close. They don't deserve to be favored versus anyone. That's an argument for Arkansas. But how about the first of all, there's a couple things that go against Arkansas. They are 1-4 in their last 5 against the spread. They're 0-5 in their last 5 road games against the spread. I think they've lost 10 straight SEC games. Those are not great numbers. Those numbers don't scream take the Hogs here. But one area in which they have been good against Ole Miss over the last few years. 6-0 in their last 6 against the spread against the Rebels. 4-1 straight up in their last 5 against the Rebels. They are 5-2 in their last 7 against Ole Miss on the road. So Arkansas has had Ole Miss's number in a way that's virtually had no other team's number. In this case, I believe that Chad Morris is the better coach than Matt Luke is. Talent-wise, I'm not even sure. But the numbers scream Arkansas. You got the better coach. Ole Miss is terrible. This, to me, feels like an actually pretty easy play. If you're going to give me a touchdown, I'm going to take the road dog here. I really like Arkansas. So that puts us at, 3-2 in favor of Arkansas? So you're going to go with the flow here, Dari? You're going to take Arkansas as well?
Here's a couple more stats for everyone just to think about. Ole Miss is 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games following a loss. They're also 0-6 against the spread versus a team with a winning record of their last, and they're also 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games on grass. For whatever that's worth, last week they were 1 out of 10 on third down opportunities. They are awful. I think Arkansas I'm taking Arkansas. I'm going with the flow. taking them straight up is also a good play. I really like the under in this game because I just think both teams offensively are not good, and it's just going to be a slowed down, low scoring game.
What do you have the under at, Dari, right now?
I think the under is around 50.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a 17-13 type game.
I think you may be right, which kind of goes to Connor's point of it not exactly being the most riveting television, but a winner pays like a winner, and I appreciate you giving us the truly actionable intelligence there on that one. I really like that. All right, final pick for us to get to here as a part of Go With The Flow, presented by our friends at R.S. Andrews. Great to have Dari Payro with us as a part of that program. It's the over-under for Georgia-Murray State. This is the combined total of expected points. You can obviously bet you think it'll be more than that, which is the over, less than that, which will be the under. 61.5 is where we have this one at right now, although admittedly over-unders for FBS versus FCS games, not exactly the easiest thing in the world to find, but we were able to find this one. So Mike Griffith has taken the over. He likes the Georgia Bulldogs on this. Jeff Sintel, you agree with our buddy Mike on that?
I don't think there's going to be that many points scored in that game. I think it's sort of like a 45-7 game, so I'm definitely going to go under there for that pick.
Under on this one from Jeff. Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, where do you weigh in on this? We've got a split between the scribes at the moment. So, oh gosh, are you serious? 94% of the audience takes the over here. I'm really surprised that this Georgia crowd must think this team's going to score 75 points on Saturday. That's pretty wild to see. So we're 2-1 favoring the over right now. Connor, talk some sense into the Dog Nation Daily audience on that. That's a lot of points.
People want to see points. Georgia fans want to see, want to see passing touchdowns. They want to see Jake Fromm throwing for 300 yards. There are certain Dog Nation Daily hosts who think his play last week, he wanted to see more. Kirby Smart hears all that. Kirby Smart doesn't care about any of that. Yeah. All that Kirby Smart cares about is that his guys play well, his team goes out and execute, and he wins. Defense is going to do a heck of a lot of that on Saturday. Last year when they played an FCS team, they had a similar chance, similar talent advantage. They didn't hit the over. It was 45-0. Yeah. They didn't have anything to show. They want to keep all their cards close to their vest because they play Notre Dame in 2 weeks. So why give Notre Dame anything to really look at? And because of that, I'm taking the under this week.
Yeah, so, Dari, this is going to be one of those where instead of like emphatically stating my opinion, I'm going to more phrase this in the form of a question, and I'm honestly curious of your answer. I don't see how this game goes over because, as Connor kind of alluded to, Georgia could win 50-0, which would be a total whitewashing of the opponent, and you're still 2 touchdowns below the over-under total here. I don't think on an empty field Murray State could score 10 points. I don't think in 3 totals or at the game time they find a way to score the 14 points that could help a game like this go over, even though they play fast and kind of want to have a little bit of an up-tempo offense. This is just not that kind of team. They're only 2-8 against the spread in their last 10. 2-7 in their last 9 September games against the spread. This is not some team that comes out there and shocks the world a whole bunch here. How in the world does this game go over? I don't see the recipe for it. I've got to go under, and frankly, I like the under here a lot more than I like the minus 49. I think if you want the safest play in the building on Saturday, this game has fewer than 60 points scored. Do you agree with that? Actually, before you weigh in, so what does that put us at? 3-2 favoring the under?
Yes.
All right, so 3-2 favors the under here. Are you going with the flow, Dari?
I'm going with the flow.
Yeah.
I'm taking the under. I think that 49 number is big to cover, and I think again it's going to be vanilla. I think they're going to score. They're going to run clock. They're going to have second and third string guys working on getting better. I think Georgia's going to put up 45 or 48 points, and I think Murray State may 3, 6, or maybe it's maybe 10 tops if they get like a late fluke touchdown or something like that. But I don't see how they get over 60.
Yeah, the only thing that scares you here is a 50-point game gets turned into 57 because of a special team score or a defensive score, 2 of which Georgia would have a decent chance of getting. Now, as a fan, I want all that to happen, but strictly speaking, from the parameters of the betting action here, the only thing that puts this in doubt is a defensive score and a special team score. But I think you need 2 of those to put the over in play. So I really like the under here a lot. All right, Dari, before we let you go, I'm going to give you one more chance to change your pick on LSU Texas. Are you sure you don't want to go with the flow and take LSU on this one?
I'm not. I just feel Texas is going to cover this game. and it's going to be fun to watch.
It is going to be fun to watch, and hopefully Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews has been fun to watch here as well. You know, when we think about the flow here on this show, we also think about the things you want flowing in your house. You want hot water flowing out of your shower. That means your water heater's got to be working the way it's supposed to. You want cold air flowing out of your AC vents. It means your air conditioning unit has to be working the way that it wants to. A lot of that kind of stuff, sometimes it's just a simple fix to kind of get it tuned up and back into factory fresh specs. R.S. Andrews can do that for you. Or if it's time to replace the unit, because let's face it, some of us have some of this stuff that's been in our house for 20 years. The shelf life on that is about done, and you don't need me to tell you that. R.S. Andrews is also your choice for that as well. It's rsandrews.com. Once again, that website, rsandrews.com. And you can talk to Dari and the whole gang there at R.S. Andrews. And they'll ask you the same question they ask everybody else in our listening and viewing area. How can they make you smile today? Because story after story, they've been delivering smiles for an awful long time. Dari, thanks for being a part of Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews today, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Everybody else have a great week as well, and thanks for being a part of Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews.